All right, everybody, welcome back to Unstuck. I'm Ethan, I'm your host, and every week we try to get a little bit more unstuck in life, whether that's through your relationships, your career, finding your purpose, just not really having any direction in life. I'm here to help you get unstuck. So, hello to all, and to all, a happy brat summer for those that observe. I'm back from Europe this week. So I feel like the jet lag is so real. I truly have no idea what day it is, what time it is. But vacation was amazing, so I truly can't complain. But I'm very happy to be back. I am going to hit the ground running with some important content. And I think what really came through for me when I was on vacation was this question. I'm just like generally things that were inspiring me all kind of circled around this concept. And what it was is, how do you decide what you want in life? How do you actually figure out what it is that you want? Because at the end of the day, deciding what you want in life will give you direction and guidance in terms of where you're headed and what steps you need to take in order to achieve that thing that you so desperately want. So one of the main reasons that I feel like I got stuck so often in my 20s is because I didn't know exactly what I wanted. And that's a scary place to be in, right? Like, you know that you want a different life. You know that you want more out of life. You know, you want bigger experiences. You know, you kind of like are desiring these things, but you don't actually know the specifics of it. You don't actually know what you can start working towards. You just have this like pull or this calling to do something more than what it is that you're doing. And so that's what I want to talk about, is anybody that's stuck in that position of knowing or like feeling a pull or a call to do something bigger or better with your life, but not knowing exactly what it looks like or what it is or what that thing is. You know, and we get so caught up in all of the stories that we've absorbed about ourselves, all of the limiting beliefs that we've absorbed about ourselves over however many years we've been alive. And that helps, and that actually obfuscates the picture, like in the grand scheme of things. It obfuscates what it is that we're actually working towards and what it is that we actually want. And so I'm going to take you through like the step-by-step process in terms of how to actually unravel all of that and go down the path of finding what it is that you want. But before we do that, I just want to offer kind of a reframe, and I want to offer a life lesson that I've learned over time. But I had this epiphany, and it honestly helped me reframe the issue of like what it is that you want in life at your core in a more thought-provoking or a more helpful way. And that truth that I now know is that your biggest desires in life and what you want the most out of life and your biggest fears live in the same part of your brain. They live in the same realm, and they're siblings. Like, I would say they're probably brother, sister, sister, whatever. And they're kind of entangled and enmeshed within each other. And learning that, honestly, was such a huge unlock for me. A lot of times we feel this call or this like pull, this calling to do something in our lives, and it's kind of generally geared in a direction that triggers something in us. Like when you think about wanting more out of life, or you think about wanting, you know, a fairy tale ending and all of these things, like it triggers something within you that has an emotional charge. And it's because it lives in like the deepest part of you, like the deepest center of you at your core. And within that center also lies like fear and your innermost thoughts about who you are as a person on the deepest level. And all of that stuff is enmeshed together. It's all intertwined and tangled in this like giant cobweb or this giant like rubber band ball. I don't know. And so we can actually use that to our advantage. And the way we do that is we're able to unlock our biggest desires whenever we start following and chasing after our biggest fears. Whenever we start facing our biggest fears, the path unfolds for us. What we want the most out of life gets uncovered through the process of facing our fears. I'll give you an example. For me, I always felt this calling and this pull to be seen, right? To be some sort of like personality, to be online, to like help people, to just kind of get my message out there and kind of like share my authentic self with the world. But at the same time, my biggest fear was also being seen. I didn't want to put myself out there to be judged. I didn't want to put myself in a vulnerable place. But I realized that by actually doing that and doing the hard work of facing your fears head on, it actually uncovers your path and what you're meant to be doing. Because at the end of the day, whenever you feel a pull and a calling, what if it's because there are tens or hundreds or thousands of people that at some point in the future need your help, and energetically you're just feeling that pull. And obviously we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. We don't know all the things that are at work for us. And so kind of releasing that and just accepting the mystery of it can be really empowering, right? Like, we don't know what it is that we're meant to be doing, but we know that we have a pull in a certain direction. And maybe that's because all of the energy and like the universe and all the people around us are kind of like steering us in the direction of our destiny or our fate. And I think just thinking about it that way is beautiful and also kind of freeing. Like, because at the end of the day, what I'm trying to do is send a relatable message to everybody. And if I can boil a problem down to this very one specific thing and have it relate to everybody, I feel like I'm doing my job and I feel like I'm solving some major issues for the world. So everybody I know and everyone I've ever talked to or come across always knows what their exact fears are. They know what they're the most scared of. And at the same time, a lot of the times they don't know what they want out of life. And it's so interesting because the answer lies within that fear. And so my advice for anybody who has this issue of like not knowing what it is exactly you want in life, my advice to you is to drop that narrative, release your feelings about not knowing what it is that you want exactly on paper, and just lean into the fact that you know what your fears are. Ask yourself, how can I face my fears today? What plan can I make to face my fears on a broader scale? And how can I actually start approaching this in a way where I am facing my fears on a daily basis and growing in that regard? Because if you're facing your fears, obviously you're growing as a person, right? It's uncomfortable to do that. And that's like the nexus of where all positive change in life happens, is whenever you start growing as a person. So if you can start facing your fears, all of these things that you hear in like the spirituality textbooks and like the spirituality podcast and the YouTube channels, it all falls in line. If you can just follow your fear, you actually start to live your life and you start to kind of untangle the thread of that enmeshment of like fear and what you want. And you start getting a clearer picture of what it is that you want. And along the way of doing that, your purpose also gets shown to you, which is a beautiful thing. And so the reason that this concept of purpose and those things that we want in life, or the things that we want the most in life, the reason that those are so elusive is because they're tangled up and hidden behind this fear, whatever that fear is at your core. So I definitely want you to like take a second to sit down and journal and say like, what is my biggest fear in life? Like, what triggers me at my deepest core? And it really is a jarring experience to like think and breathe into this and get to the bottom of it, because what you uncover about yourself is basically like your biggest truth. It really is who you are at the end of the day. And that is beautiful. It's nothing to be scared of. It's nothing to be ashamed of. It's nothing to judge. It's just who you are. And accepting that part of you and accepting the fear that comes along with that thing that you're the most scared of, that's actually how you begin to set yourself free and you begin to live life on your own terms. Anyway, so going back to what I was saying about my example of me like having this desire to be seen and to help people and to like distill my wisdom and my messages and my thoughts down to a reasonable way to help people, also came at the expense of my biggest fear, being seen or being able to be judged by people on the internet or by people I've known in my life, like people that were mean to me in high school, people that I used to date or that I was interested in. Like, giving them that power over me was an excuse at the end of the day. Giving people the power over you and saying that they hold that fear in their hands is ultimately an excuse for you not to pursue what it is that you want the most in life. And just let that sink in for a little bit. Like, you're giving your life to other people. How sad is that? How depressing is that? Don't be the person that never starts that project, never chases their dream because they're scared of what some random person who doesn't even honestly probably interact with them anymore or isn't in their life anymore, don't let them be the reason that you don't start something. Don't give them that power. So anyway, all that to say is, if you don't know what it is that you want in life, but you have a calling to do something greater or find your purpose, then keep listening, because this is how you actually go about making those changes. The first step is to become who you are. And the reason that this is the most important first step is because by becoming and accepting who you are, it kind of gives you the foundation to start tackling this fear. And it gives you the toolbox and the tools to actually start making progress and chipping away at this concept of like facing your biggest fears. And the way to become who you are at your core is by shedding the layers of society that you've absorbed over the past, 10 to 15 years, or however old you are. And the way you do that is by getting back in touch with yourself, truly following your intuition, carving out time in the day for you to do things that you genuinely enjoy, getting to know yourself again, reacquainting yourself with yourself. Doing all of these things is a helpful foundational step for whenever you then go on to the next step of letting go of any identities that don't serve you anymore. So if you were always raised to believe that you need to be married with kids in a house in a suburb by the age of 27, but maybe you're 28 now and that identity no longer serves you and that belief no longer serves you, it's time to let go of those. It's time to just release them. And the way you release them is by accepting that they served a purpose at one point to get you where you are today, acknowledging that, and then not letting that have power over you anymore, not letting that trigger you anymore when you think about it. All of the past versions of you served a purpose at one point. And the way that you become who you're supposed to be is by accepting all of those versions of yourself in the past that did serve a purpose at one point that you may not no longer like, or that may be holding you back, giving them the authority and not hiding them in the shadows of who you are, and bringing them into the version of yourself that you are today, accepting them for the lessons they taught you, and ultimately learning how to love them and how to appreciate what they did for you and take those lessons and carry them along with you in the present. That's ultimately how you self-actualize. That's ultimately how you become the most authentic version of yourself, is by not negating them anymore, not neglecting them, but truly bringing them into the present day. Once you're able to do all of those steps, you become fully integrated. And the next step is actually so incredibly important. And what you're going to do is you're going to start journaling. You're going to start a practice of sitting down every day for 10 minutes to journal. And this could take a week. This could take 2 weeks, or it could take one session. Like truly carving out the space to genuinely answer these questions then gives you the answers and like the direction to go and start tackling the fears and making progress to figuring out what it is that you want in life. So whenever you journal, you're going to ask yourself, what have you always felt called to do? How is it that you've always helped people? Or what kind of help have people come to you asking for in the past? The next question is, what do you actually enjoy doing with your free time? What are you naturally good at? Both of those can be answered with like similar answers, so I would just answer them at the same time. But what are you actually genuinely so good at that it just comes so naturally to you, and you don't have to think twice about, and you don't even have to think twice about starting out. And you don't even have to think twice about doing this thing because it just comes so naturally to you. The next question is, what is the thing that you've struggled the most with throughout your adult life? What is one struggle that you haven't been able to solve for yourself, no matter how much time, how much energy, how much thought you put into that thing? What is the struggle that you have always faced and never conquered? And then the final question is, what am I the most scared of? Go deep on this. Don't just journal about, oh, I'm scared of snakes, or oh, spiders, like I really hate those. No, you can write those things down, but in service of getting to the deeper question, like what is, if you're on your deathbed, 70 years from now, and you're on your deathbed, and you have to look back on your life, and someone asks you like, what is one thing that you wish you could have done, but you let your fear get in the way? Just think of it in that context. Like, this is an existential question. What are you the most scared of in life? I know, like for me personally, it was being seen and also getting to the end of my life, not having met my potential, or like having some sort of talent or interest that I never gave time because I was afraid or I was judgmental of it, and just not knowing that and carrying that with me to my grave. So for you, it could look like a million different things, but ultimately, like, what is the scariest thing that you can possibly think of for yourself to go through life never having faced, or to go through life carrying with you? And I'll let you in on a little secret. A lot of times this lives with your inner child. So if you think about it, really at your core, all of the answers to your intuition and all of the questions that you have really lie like in your intuition, and your inner child is the seat of your intuition. All of these worldviews, all of these beliefs, all of these things you've internalized all sit with your inner child. So connecting with your inner child and figuring out what they were the most scared of, it's probably going to be the same exact thing that you're the most scared of currently. Then what you're going to do is go and look at the answers to all of your questions and try to find some common threads. Like if your answer to what am I the most scared of is being seen, and then you also go and answer, and you've also answered the question of like, what am I naturally good at with storytelling or giving advice, then obviously like the clear through line there is that you need to find a way to tell stories and give advice on a platform that forces you to be seen, right? So all of these things can kind of weave together to give you a bigger picture, or a clearer picture of what it is that you actually want and that you should be doing with your life. So once you've done this exercise and you know kind of, or you have an idea of what your biggest fears are, find a way to start tackling those on a daily basis. If you have a fear of being seen, start doing exposure therapy. Start posting videos online for everyone to see and remove the charge from that fear. Attack the fear radically and unapologetically. Treat this as your biggest mission in life and watch how your life changes and unfolds over the next 6 months. You will immediately start to notice that things that you want to do and like things that you actually desire in life start becoming more clear. You become more confident in yourself. If you can tackle this problem of facing the biggest fear that you have about yourself and about life, you automatically start becoming a more confident person, and you automatically start giving yourself the agency and the authority to start working these problems, these bigger issues in life of what is my purpose? What do I want in life? And unlocking the answers to those questions is ultimately what's at the core of this podcast and what's at the core of what I'm trying to help you with. All of these things are intertwined, and I'm giving you the roadmap and the tools to start doing it. So why don't you start today? Why haven't you started? Just truly sit down, do these exercises, and start facing your fear. And whenever you do this, your life will absolutely change. So I hope this is helpful, and thank you so much for making it to the end of this episode. And if you enjoyed this episode, please take 5 seconds to rate my podcast on whatever platform it is that you listen on. It really, really helps me out with ranking and getting discovered, so I can keep making content like this and keep helping people like you get unstuck and find their purpose and just generally live better lives that are more meaningful and fulfilled. So if you could please take 5 seconds to rate my podcast on whatever platform it is that you listen, I would really appreciate it. Thank you so much, and I can't wait to talk to you next week. All right, bye everyone.